welcome. Thank you for coming to the CARD meeting tonight. We'll officially get started at 6 o'clock. We'll go down and do brief introductions. We'll start down in this end and maybe work our way around the U and then head to the back row.
Hi everyone, I'm Colleen. I'm a PhD student from Wayne State University.
I'm Camille. I'm also a PhD student at Wayne State.
And I'm Brendan O'Leary. I'm a PhD student at Wayne.
Jennifer Kahn, Public Health Engineer for Washtenaw County.
I'm Katie Jositis. I work for Congresswoman Dingell's office.
Jeff Hayner, Ann Arbor City Council.
Beth Collins, CARD Secretary and Ann Arbor resident.
I'm Roger Rayle, Chair of CARD and Chair of Scio Residents for Safe Water.
And camera person.
Kathy Knowles, Scio trustee. Rita La Caruso, CARD member.
Vince Crusoe, board member CARD and coordinating member for the Allen Creek Watershed Group.
Hi there, Kristen Schwenko for Environmental Health Director with the Washtenaw County Health Department.
Dan Hamel, Project Manager for the Gelman site for EGLE.
Dan Bicknell, Global Environment Alliance.
Cynthia Price, an interested citizen.
Patty McCall with Tetra Tech.
Sarah Kalpis, Science Journalist.
Steve Brown, Environmental Commission and Sierra Club.
Diana Wright, citizen.
Jillian Carey, Scio Township resident.
Bob Hyde, Scio Township resident.
Shauna Milkey, Ann Arbor resident.
There is a sign-in sheet going around if anyone hasn't. Oh, it looks like it's coming that way. So it is making its way to the back. But if you just make sure, if you haven't, that you sign in before you go today. Thank you.
The next one is for the board to approve the minutes from last month.
I'll second.
Vince and all in favor?
Aye.
Nobody opposed?
All right. Next is to touch on some ongoing agenda items, see if there's any updates. So the first are EGLE items with Dan.
The status of the trend analysis, like I said last time, it's ongoing. We're going to be utilizing that once we CJ is modified and we start working with Gelman and the stakeholders with updating and modifying the sampling plans. That's where we're going to have the statistical trend analysis be part of that. So that's when it will come out and we will have further discussion. Well, I'm up again. The status of the new compliance wells on Scio Township development, no new, the update is the same. If you remember, the monitoring well 63 S, I, and D were properly abandoned. The property owner, Mark Smith, whatever that's, I think he's the development property there, he requested that those be abandoned. He asked Gelman to abandon those because they are within a footprint of an existing, well, a proposed structure. Gelman submitted that request to us and along with information, and we approved that proper abandonment. It was done last fall. And as far as replacements, there have been several questions from stakeholders here about replacing those wells, and the status is the same. We want to utilize those wells, replacement wells, when the CJ is modified, and we are going to be installing additional wells to implement the 7.2 criteria in the CJ. So rather than going just a replacement well to well in the similar location, we're holding off and going to be utilizing those as extra wells to be installed at appropriate locations related to implementing the 7.2 criteria on the western area, in the western area.
It was 62, wasn't it?
62 SI and D. One of those wells is currently a compliance monitoring well, as I stated. Maybe two, two of the wells are. So they are I have to take my glasses off. 63 I and 63 S, and those are were identified as compliance wells under the current CJ, which means that they are utilized or sampled related to and compared to the criteria of 85 to see if they are in compliance. You know, the CJ requires that concentrations above 85 don't go outside, you know, past those wells. The status, the next one's the status of the MS4 violation. It's still, our Water Resources Group is working with Washtenaw County, Evan Pratt. That's the latest information I have. I don't have anything specific. They are still evaluating the requirements with Washtenaw County and developing a plan to eliminate the illicit discharge. I don't have any new information on that. I don't have a time frame, but yes.
So Dan Bicknell was good enough to contact the state and get a determination as to what the status is.
Yep.
The status, I don't know if you saw that, but they're trying to work with the Evan Pratt,
Yep.
the County Water Resources Commissioner. I had talked to Evan Pratt about this, and he said that, you know, he's interested in figuring out a solution. I did mention to him that I thought one of the common ways to solve this problem is to line the pipe so the contaminant doesn't get into the pipe, because that's the violation right now for MS4, which is a stormwater violation. Under the MS4 for this site, for that location, there's no pollution allowed at all. If there's any contamination, typically it has to be cleaned up. And like I said, in some cases they try and line the pipe with a pipe liner to stop the infiltration. It's my understanding that that pipe was set up to pick up groundwater in that area because there's a lot of groundwater. That's one of the reasons we had testing done at West Park. There's a lot of groundwater that comes out at the hillside there as it cuts away. And so I don't think it's going to be advisable or possible to line the pipe because we'll have a huge amount of groundwater that'll be unencumbered. It won't go into the pipe, so it has to go somewhere. And the original notion that I had was that situation is a problem in a lot of the west side because they have seeps and groundwater coming to the surface. And when they put in that pipe, they tried to capture a lot of the free groundwater, so it wouldn't undermine the roadway, wouldn't undermine basements. So there's really no other place for that water to go. So it would be really difficult. So it really does, in my opinion, needs to be cleaned up. Gilman needs to come in, clean up that contamination. If it means they have to clean it all the way up to the site, that's the reality. And this is one of the things I've talked about in the pre-meeting tonight, is that this is a near-term issue facing the west side of Ann Arbor, if not other places, and it has to be dealt with. And I think we need to get moving on it. It's at 22 part per billion. Like I said, Bob Bailey's analysis that has not been refuted is 100 part per billion action level. So it's 1,000 at Beth's Park, like 11 blocks upstream, and that's coming towards West Park and the whole west side and the west side of the city. And so this is not 30 years down the road.
Can I ask a question, Dan? When you and Evan do the next set of testing, should you test where Allen Creek dumps into Argo?
We haven't proposed sampling up there yet. We haven't really finalized a sampling plan.
But
for
where
this
it
year.
comes out of the drain into the river.
Right here.
Yeah, like maybe that should be a test point next time.
He had mentioned that too.
Okay.
I have a question about the MS4, Dan.
I'm not an MS4 guy, but
Okay, well, maybe our map master can answer this. So Allen Creek drain is the one that's in violation. So are there other county drains that have the potential to have the same thing going on in them?
Short answer is yes. No one's looking. And this is...
What would those be? Like
the other parts, virtually all municipal separate stormwater system covers Allen Drain and a lot of other drains. I'm not sure all of the other ones, but a lot of the county drains fall into this.
So that
And
county
there
drain
are- there are
yeah.
county drains that are within the plume that are probably not being monitored now. It was only because CART asked that we understood that there's a problem with Allen Creek. But the permit requires immediate action to stop any amount of dioxane, as we were talking about, that goes into that Allen Creek. It's not like there's a level that's acceptable. There's no level acceptable under this permit. And it also, again, requires immediate action, immediate enforcement actions, which are not happening, unfortunately.
So when Evan gave me a county drains map, we had an orientation session about it. I can just kind of do my mental overlay and see what potential other places might be.
You need to ask Evan which county drains fall within that MS4 permit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
And then you
they're
can-
not all part of that.
Yeah, and then you can overlay the plume onto that and be able to understand potential additional problems.
And that would be a good data set to have, is which of the drains are in the MS4.
Yeah, I think that would be.
I do want to point out that one of the options under the program, a little clarifying Dan's comment, is you can have the contamination in the storm sewer if you have, and require the owner, Washtenaw County, or operator of illicit discharge to apply for and obtain an NPDES permit.
That's not correct, Ann.
Well, that's directly from the people, and that's directly in their
So
compliance document here, Dan.
So the
And
county
I
would
checked on
become-
that just because I had a lot of questions.
The county would become part of that, then they would be acting as a discharger in that case under that.
Right,
NPDES.
and again, this also, as far as,
Just before we go on, Dan, only Gelman can apply for that permit.
right,
And it's not the county, as you said, it's only Gelman can apply for that, but it only can be applied for as it relates to Gelman around their property. Having this be 3 or 4 miles away is not applicable according to the program manager of the state, Christine Allen.
I talked to Christie too, Dan, and so we're getting conflicting reports from Christie. So we'll get it, I'll ask her again. But I also wanted to point out if you have, under our environmental regulations, as far as what we were talking about, NPDES, venting groundwater, this type of, into storm sewers, it is regulated under our Part 201-20E, and it's several pages, a page and a half of what are options that way. So people wanted to take a look at
But
that.
that's a different program.
You mean like-
Absolutely, but this, how it integrates into Part 31, in which is the NP, where the NPDES is covered under 201. So it is very, what I'm saying is very kind of complex, and there's a lot of options in there. So it's not just a black and white situation, so,
But-
in my opinion.
Well, I
But in
appreciate
Christie's opinion, who's again the program manager, she indicates and has indicated apparently to everyone that, yeah, it's 2 different programs. You're talking about 201. This has nothing to do with Part 201. This is-
Absolutely, Dan,
this is-
but
This
under-
is, let me finish, this is a municipal MS4 permit. It's a federal permit that's been delegated to the state, which Evan, as Washtenaw County, is responsible for administrating. And the requirements in that are separate from the requirements in Part 201. So people have been confusing what's required under Part 201 to address a contaminant plume versus what's required under that permit. That permit does not require that permit does not allow any dioxane contamination to infiltrate into the pipe.
That's how I read it.
That's how everyone has read it and understood it, that has talked to the proper people, federal people and state people.
Dan, you're back from vacation now? Can you set up the table so you can be on camera?
That's all I have to say.
We shall see.
Right now, it's a disembodied voice.
So I have one more comment. I think this points up the real need, and we've talked about this before, a real need for permanent shallow groundwater wells in this area, if not other areas, to get a better handle on what kind of contamination is coming to the surface and potentially contaminating basements, potentially exposing residents in their basements, which is a confined space. And a lot of the basements in Ann Arbor are used for play spaces, offices, bedrooms, because square footage is so expensive. And there's a lot of basements that are at risk, in my opinion, because with the Elms Creek group for the last 25 years, there's been a lot of complaints and a lot of questions about wet basements, and why do we have such wet basements? How can we deal with it? Who's responsible? So that's a common question people get when they deal with the Elms Creek watershed, and I think we need to make sure that we don't expose these homeowners to the groundwater contamination. It's now percolating near the surface. That test that was done at West Park was done at 10 feet below the surface. And there are seeps coming out of the hillsides at West Park that are at the surface that probably are contaminated, probably the same groundwater, but it has not been tested.
I would like to just clarify that the 10 feet deep, you're referring to the Allen Creek storm drain that is enclosed and not the groundwater in West Park.
Well, okay, so let's go over this again. And we can do this every meeting if we want. It was tested at West Park in the drain on the path, okay?
Yep, I agree.
Then there were tests done, and it was found at 22 Parker Building. It's been going up over the last 2 or 3 years. So then they went upstream and tested the same pipe, maybe a couple thousand feet upstream, and it was non-detect. So that tells you, I think pretty conclusively, that this is groundwater infiltrating into that pipe that is contaminated. And to Dan's credit and the DEQ's credit, they waited, we requested that those tests wait until it was a dry spell or a drought, so that we would preferentially be testing groundwater, not stormwater runoff.
Right, but it could be groundwater
So to
infiltrating
me, that indicates,
farther away.
let me just finish. That indicates that what we were testing was groundwater. It's a known issue that is a high groundwater flow area, and there are several of those in Ann Arbor. And I can tell you where to go see those. And you can stand on top of these grates during a drought. Water's gushing through there like it's a major storm event.
Shallow channels.
So it's groundwater, it's contaminated groundwater, and if we want to do an investigation, I suggest we do it and find out where it's coming from and how to mitigate it.
I agree we need permanent shallow monitoring wells in the groundwater because the Allen Creek storm drain doesn't tell you what's right at West Park. So I just wanted to clarify that statement because the last time we tested the shallow groundwater in West Park, there was no detections of 1 part dioxane. It was found at Waterworks Park, but not West Park.
Is it fair to say that the county and CARD and most of the folks around this table are supportive of the notion of some permanent monitoring wells in that area?
The last test in West Park was positive. It was 22 Parker Building.
We're in agreement with that too. One of the things, I want Gelman to do that. And so we are caught up in that confidential negotiations about how to implement an additional work that's going to be done, required. So, no, I totally agree.
So here's another request for those shallow groundwater wells be permanently installed.
Yeah.
For what it's worth.
And you're next on the agenda too, if you want to keep moving forward on the agenda, you are next on the agenda too.
Oh, so the vapor intrusion. So we talked with the students here, PhD students, who were interested in vapor intrusion and shallow groundwater and such. And so I talked to the city administrator and city staff, and they are supportive of doing vapor intrusion analysis, potentially in a city building or in residential buildings. It's unclear where they can do it or how they can do it. One suggestion was using the band shell at West Park, but getting staff to coordinate that has gotten to be a little bit difficult. The advantage with that is there's nobody living there and the basement's unused, so they could basically use that as a way to verify models that they've calculated, vapor intrusion coming through the ground, coming up next to a building, coming into cracks or whatever, where the water would migrate into the basement, evaporate, and then expose the residents.
So the
They have
notion is
models.
that there'd be testing equipment that would have to be kind of locked in this basement that would run over time?
Well, according to Dr. Batterman, who came to the EGLE event, the 50th Earth Day for U of M, which we were at, he said they basically would just bring a sampler and leave it temporarily on the site, like, kind of like radon.
Yeah, that's what I thought. So we say, hey, we need 30 days undisturbed or whatever that period is in there.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Just
So
so I know what I
the
asked.
city has, I had talked to Jerry Hancock about the city buying up some properties that are in the floodway. And maybe before they knock the building down, we could do some tests in those. The prices came back that were too high for the city to afford. So they're not actually going to buy any houses currently. They have bought some in the recent past and then knocked them down. But there are other options, that what we want to do is get a site that's close to a known exposure, potential exposure, so where it's like 20 part per billion or 22 part per billion.
Kind of like around Chapin.
Around Chapin is a
Does
possibility.
the county have any,
No.
not wanting people to allow this to happen in their basement, as an example? If you do somebody who had a very wet basement, would you
So
want?
if you have a wet basement, we'd be concerned about mold and other health issues, and mold is a huge issue with respiratory conditions.
Right.
So we would recommend that you get the water out of your basement. It's also probably a structural issue. for
Yeah,
most
I do a
homes.
lot of that. Yeah.
Especially on the west side.
Right, so I mean, those would be my primary concerns. Given the movement of the plume, there could be some concerns with water migrating into basements that had dioxane in it. I would think that shallow groundwater monitoring wells would address some of that
Yeah, I mean.
prior to it getting into the homes.
Right. I mean, just like, does the county have any problem with us wanting to do this test and the city wanting to do
Well,
testing?
If Batterman were to do the test, he has to get approval from the university
Okay, all right.
in basements.
Okay. I think that we can rig that up to get the van shelter. I don't see why that would be a problem, so I'll talk to Colin.
Yeah, I guess, is that the same elevation it's at people's homes? Because
No,
again,
no, you're right, Christine, it's up higher, so it's not in the general plume.
So I have another point I would like to make. The city of Ann Arbor's concern was pretty significant, and I'll tell you why. We had a environmental staff member with the city of Ann Arbor at a CARD meeting many years ago, maybe 10 years ago, when the Ann Arbor apartments were about to break ground to build that apartment building on First and William,
Yeah,
First and Washington.
And between Liberty and Washington.
Yeah.
Washington.
And we discussed, okay, you're gonna have 2 floors of parking below grade. And we asked him, what's the city gonna do if that water, it'll probably get into, he said they'd be into the groundwater with that lower level. And we asked him, what is the city gonna do if that water's contaminated? Because the city owns that, would own it. And he went, we never really even talked about that. He went back, they did a stop work on that project, stop work order. It was already ready to be built, ready to do the groundbreaking. They stopped, they redesigned the building so they could lift it up a whole story because they didn't want that contamination to come into the building and the city have to deal with that. So that's the kind of attitude the city has about groundwater contamination in the near surface. Tells you something. It costs that company a lot of money and the city a lot of money to redo that design that late in the process. And it's basically because the CARD group was saying, look, you're gonna have problems with this groundwater. If not now, in a couple of years to come. So,
What about in Scio, where they're building those homes and that, aren't they gonna have wet, or aren't they in the shallow part of the plume?
I don't know for sure. They are.
And I thought that-
Scioview.
Yeah, that senior place they wanted to put there too said parking underground. I just think if it's shallow, that,
You're talking about this?
yeah,
Mark Smith
Mark Smith's.
Excuse me.
Hmm.
Yeah, because water table's really high there.
Mhm.
How close to the ground is it, the surface?
okay.
Static water.
Hmm.
It's not part of the Google mission.
But Kristen, you're right that if you do a band shell, that's probably 20, 30 feet above the real shallow groundwater that's contaminated, that's sitting shaking.
Yeah, I don't know how deep that basement is, so I mean, that might take care of some of
That's
that
true,
question.
but you know, it's way up top if you're.
I
if
looked
your
at the
mind-
elevation, it's not that much higher. So I went on the map and looked at elevations. It's in a depression, there's like a hill,
Mhm.
and they both drop off. That's where the old creek bed is.
Talking
So
about
it's
the
not
band shell.
ideal.
Yeah, if we could grab it shaking, somebody I'm sure would volunteer.
I know a guy on Chapin I'm gonna talk to. So.
All right, any other comments, questions on those discussion items before we move on?
Yeah, I have a question for Dan about the, go back to that. About the state of the trend analysis. So, have they done any more picking of wells for the trend analysis?
Not yet.
So nothing's been done on the trend analysis in terms of extending it
No.
from what it was before. And you do agree that, from my analysis, you can confirm that about 25% of the sample points were going up, and about 25% were going down.
We had that same range
And
there.
the rest of them were either the same, they can't, it's either static, it's not going up, not going down, or they didn't have enough data points to project.
Right.
So, one of the questions I would have about that, they use an app from this firm out of Virginia, and it uses the last 40 sample points. Like it's a parameter built into that app. If I were doing it, I would wonder, can that parameter be changed to be any number? Did anybody ask about that?
I'd have to check on that, Roger. I didn't.
Because they ended up doing like 4 sets. They said, we'll do the last 40, and then they would say they would do the picking arbitrary 2011, they'll do the 40 before 2011 and the 40 after 2011, and then I forget what the 4th category was. But it seems to me that because some of these wells have different sampling frequencies, the last 40 might be 2 years, or it might be 4 years, or it might be
Absolutely.
part of a year.
But they haven't gone, we haven't gone in depth yet because of the other things that are happening. Again, we're going to utilize that as we modify the monitoring plan. And what we asked Gelman to do is give us a snapshot of what they would recommend or what they would do for a trend analysis. So that's where we are right now. There'll be more in-depth evaluation and evaluation of that trend analysis, and that's where those questions you have will be answered right now.
So here, I've plotted all those, and the red are the ones where it's still increasing, and the green are where they're going down, and then the gray or white are where there's no. So the last 40 can be broken down by category, and we can just turn on the ones that are green. So those are wells where it's going down, and they tend to be in the center of the plumes. And you can probably guess what's coming next is that the increasing ones tend to be at the peripheral. In fact, for this part of the plume, they're in the northern part. So that confirms what we've been thinking all along, is that there's a northern component here, that this dioxane is still moving north. And that has implications. So I just wanted to point that out.
Okay. On to new EGLE update. Dan, NPDES permitting?
Yeah, I checked with the NPDES people this week, and it has moved a little bit forward. They have a draft permit completed. It's in their final in-house review, and then it's going to be given to Gelman. That's the next step. And once that's given to Gelman for discussion with Gelman, that's when they'll identify a review time for external. But I don't have a time frame. They're not committing to a time frame, but it has moved forward from the last time we were here in the quarterly meeting.
So you haven't seen it, obviously.
No, I won't see it until
Everybody else sees it.
everybody else sees it. It's going to, it's in their internal review of the permit section, and then it'll go to Gelman as the permittee, and that's after that, just like I will be able to see it after that. It'll be posted on the Michigan Waters, I think, or whatever, that program they have.
No time frame.
No time frame. They did not want to commit. Again, they have, like they said, they're, way behind on the water.
Are they waiting on the consent agreement too, or not?
No.
Okay, that has nothing to do with it.
They have to, we have a consent agreement in place now.
The current one.
The current one, that permit, that NPDES permit has expired, October.
That's why I wondered if they were
So
waiting.
they have to get something in place. Now, until a new one is done, the old one, the way the regulations how it's done is that the old one is still is maintained or still in effect until the new one is promulgated or put in place.
Okay. So what's new?
Oh, Vince, did you have a question before?
What's new? No.
Oh.
I just wanted to ask if it would be appropriate to have our council members who are sitting here tonight give us an update on the CJ discussions, if any comments can be made.
That's
For later.
That's later, they may have to leave them. So, I don't think there's going to be much, but I just,
I don't have to leave.
You don't have to leave?
No, I like this job.
Okay. Well, you can
We
wait.
want to follow proper protocol.
He's waiting for the cookies to come back around.
But, there's not a lot that they can say.
I wanted to ask, if we got a tape rolling here.
I know.
Well,
So I
they-
had
I mean,
reminding them there's.
Okay, we'll get,
Yeah,
we can
we'll
even move
get
it up
to
in
it
the
down the
agenda. I
menu.
just want Dan to be able to finish his
Well, this is a
update.
mix between EGLE and the city and the judge.
Sorry.
Let's
what's-
follow what's in the agenda.
Yeah, let's go, if you don't mind.
All right.
Carry on, sorry, what's new?
The temporary wells. The extraction wells, the TW well rehabilitation activities that I have been talking about for the last couple of CARD meetings are completed. They rehabilitated TW 18, 19, 21, and 23. So all those are back online at the, only two of them have a required pumping rate, but the other ones were done since they had Stearns out here. They went ahead and did some presumptive maintenance on those wells and rehabilitated those. That was done in middle of February here. They were completed. You can see what went on in the sense of when things were turned back on, the pumping rate reductions. You can look under the NPDES permits, NPDES reports that I post every month. So you can go in there and see which wells. It's they even identify, hey, we shut these down for maintenance and what days they were down and those types of things, if someone wants some additional information. What's coming up here in the near term is the EGLE Washtenaw County residential well sampling activities for 2020 will be initiated by May 1st, likely probably in April, probably start in April. If you remember, there's going to be approximately approaching 200 sampling points. We kept the ones that were in from last year, especially in areas that had the new detections. So some of the wells are done twice a year, so it's approximately 212 total samples are going to be done, or or before the end of, before October 1st. And that again will start probably in April. Just a couple of, the January access database has been posted. It came up today, Roger.
I got it already.
Okay. I made some corrections in there, Roger, from some of our discussions at the lunch we had, and then also you had sent some things on about, hey, this is missing here, this is missing there. I tried to do corrections. I've been trying to make corrections in the data, not the actual, the XYs and anything that you have been suggesting that, hey, this is missing. If I have it, I'm gonna try, I keep trying to update it.
Is it?
Like there was some discrepancies in, we had some data, but not a well location that we talked about at our lunch there. I went in and figured that out and made those corrections.
All right. So, but not the missing data, not the missing well log data that's we've been talking about for 10,
Years?
12 years.
No, not that. No, just some of the stuff that more recent that you talked to me about.
And should I look for a certain note, or just those erroneously entered ones are just gone? Or?
Well, what happened, the entered ones I corrected in the actual sheets, the access sheets. So some of those are now, they go to a well location. So
right. Before you had the
I corrected the address.
Well
Yeah, right. So I made the
link.
correction in the actual database. So it's now associated with a location.
So is that what you're talking about? Just those?
Just those for now. You had also mentioned in the notes, which, I updated anything that I had notes on where recent wells have been abandoned, properly abandoned. I put it in the notes. The comments.
Okay. Well, thanks for correcting that.
What else? A couple other. I mentioned this before. A year-end quarterly report I'm calling summary of recent activities and response actions. Is posted through December. The drinking water results for 2019 residential well are posted now there. I will post the 2020 as I get them. You'll have an April, May type of posting, and then later on when they finish, usually in September, then I'll put them all together and post them as a full year.
But those aren't in the same database, though.
They are.
Or are they?
Yeah.
All of them?
All of them. Now, this is where you I may not have all the addresses in yet. Again, it's because we have so many this coming year. I think most of them are, ones we've done before. There may be a couple that you'll notice, oh, hey, I have data, but I don't have a spot in there yet.
Yeah, just be careful to standardize the street names when you put them in.
One of the things you're right, so a lot of times is Dexter Road.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I haven't done that is if we have a lot of historic data that's known as XXX Dexter, and now, I've been using Dexter Road, I have to go, well, again, not being an access database official person, the only way I can go in, I got to go in and correct all those inside access, and it's time consuming, so I haven't done that. So,
is there an access expert in the room that can help you?
Yeah, and please understand too, access is going away, just like.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. What's going to replace it?
Well, Roger, that's what we're talking feverishly in-house of, guys. I got a bunch of data that where we're going to put it, and so I can't give
time to add the missing fields that we've been asking.
Roger, those missing fields are related to what you have said. Gelman.
But you could get ready to do that.
I didn't hear what you said.
If you're going to convert the database, that would be the appropriate time.
Absolutely.
To add in the missing fields. So maybe we can have a subgroup from anybody that's interested in that in this group meet with.
But I got to get a platform first, and the state hasn't decided, where we're going to put it.
Well, but
is it going to go into my LIMS system from our lab?
Is the platform going to dictate what kind of data format it's going to be, or is is the desired data format going to determine what kind of platform you?
If I had to, it's the former, because the platform, if it's already existing, and it associated like with the laboratory and stuff like that, I doubt whether they're gonna wanna pay for and utilize a new system. So I don't have an answer for you yet.
Well, then
And
I
again,
want
that's
to be
what-
part of the selection for that platform.
I've said that, Roger, and I haven't, no one has said no way yet. So
This is what I did for 40 years.
I know, and I've said that, and no, I mean, we've mentioned that. I said, hey, you know, we have a very active stakeholder person that, you know, that is very
Would it
knowledgeable.
help if I gave a proposal and got paid for it?
I don't know, you know.
Is the Gelman database the only database that's using Access, or is this like switch have to impact a lot of?
I can't answer that. I really don't, I can't answer that. I don't know what other, I mean, some of the other sites, what they are utilizing. I know a couple of them have Access, but I don't know if there's something else that they have done. So,
I didn't catch all the things you said, because you were updating. You said you had new this and new that. One I remembered was you uploaded the new data on residential well sampling. So here's my question, it's a general one. In those new things that you just told us you had uploaded, is there anything remarkable? Is there anything interesting? Is there anything unexpected?
no, it's information, you know, like for the full year of their 2019 residential well data. I uploaded it.
Are there any changes?
No, other than we
Yes.
had expanded at certain locations, we expanded analytes. You know, we went VOCs, SVOCs, so those are all in there too. It's all related to an address, not a person's name. I'm not allowed to use person's name, PI, personal information, so it's related to an address. So you know, if we had, you know, if we had and expanded at this certain address, we expanded with VOCs, SVOCs, they're in there. So that's new for this year, if you remember that was.
Upload, is there a report on the data, like an analysis of it or anything?
No, this is just strict data. Someone can go in and look up their address if they want, and this is the results. They can also, you know, you get that from the environmental lab and the drinking water lab, you know, with a request. But it's on the web, you know, the Gelman webpage. These are all linked samples to Gelman. So it's all, yes?
So were there any wells closed in 2019, residential wells?
Because of dioxane or other?
Because of dioxane? No.
Other contaminants?
No, just some were abandoned because
They don't live there.
they were,
Okay, but none?
yeah, they got bought out by a commercial property and demoed, but
Yeah, okay, great.
the highest residential sample, I believe, was still 2 parts per billion. And, I mean, historically, they've gone up to 4, but in 2019, the highest detection in a drinking water well was 2 parts per billion.
So what's the limit they would switch them out?
7.2?
We have stated before that,
I thought it was non-detect.
no, we have stated before that as a 3 or 4, we would look at providing bottled water. You know, the state has done that. Again, we would you know, do that. The actual criteria is 7.2. So to make a Gelman do something, there's a 7.2 cutoff. You know, that's the new criteria.
Except in the prohibition zone where that's the line.
Well, but no one's drinking the water in the
Right.
prohibition zone.
Supposedly.
You know.
Yeah, right.
I mean, I guess,
Right.
to our best knowledge, no one is being exposed by drinking the water.
So if it's at 3 and the state decides and the county decides that's not acceptable, who pays for that? Because Gelman would only pay if it's at 7.2 or higher?
Well, we would
decided?
initiate, you know, here's how I would do it. We would initiate getting the water there. We're not going to start arguing. We've said that. The state has said that. So initially, the state would start that payment. But then we would approach Gelman like we have done in the past. And on selected occasions, they have connected people up, like the 5005, several years ago, 5005 Jackson, that suddenly when the criteria changed, they were at 15, you know. And so we got bottled water in there. In fact, a lot of Washoe County came in and had bottled water. But Gelman, within a short time, based upon our EGLE request, DEQ's request, go ahead and hook them up. It was easy because the water line was along Jackson. So we would definitely request that of Gelman. Whether they would do that, it would be, you know, case by case, I'm sure. One other point, what's new is, as I've confirmed, we're going to be doing surface water sampling. I gave a list of locations. Roger, I believe you asked me to add Miller Road and you know, the Honey Creek at Miller Road. I've go ahead and added that. I'm anticipating or going to be trying to complete that in August, September 2020. This one here? Yeah, it's, oh, yeah. Right, we're processing the water there.
You know, there's a historical value there.
Yeah, there is. It's some years old. It's back in, I forget how old it is, but we just have not done that there. We did Dexter, we did, and then north of that, started the new ones up by, you know, as we approach Huron River. So we'll go ahead, I mean, if it's easy access off of, well, easy is in the eye of the beholder. It's access off of the road there.
All right.
That's all I have. Anybody have any questions?
No. Hearing none. Do we want to move on to Roger's chair updates, or did you want to move up the item number 8? That was the...
I want to get through my update.
Okay.
So first I have to bring up my email that I wrote to myself. It has all the links in it. So I already had this diagram up about the information infrastructure. And then we talked about this in the pre-meeting. These are all the entities that have some information that relates to the Gelman site. And as we go forward, I want to start populating the interrelationships between these. Who has which data? How is it stored? How is it accessed? Making sure that all these other entities, as they make their decisions, know that this other information is available and how to get to it. And I presented this a year or so ago, but I want to go through it real quick again. So we have data from Scio Township, the parcels, the historical parcels, all the way back to when the parcels were first split. We have the U of M Saginaw Forest, Third Sister Lake testing that they do independent of what the DEQ does. And I got the first full set of that a couple of years ago, and we got the one for 2018 just a few months ago. The county has well permits, has sampling for EGLE around the peripheral of the plume. County does GI extracts in KML, KMC format that I've used on some of my Google Earth mashups. And of course, all the county drain information is in the hands of the county. Ann Arbor City has dioxane and bromate testing by the city or by Gelman Paul Danaher. It's not in the DEQ database, so everybody should be aware of that. They have their own parcel data in and near plume areas. They got, of course, all the historical parcels owned or leased by personal property by Gelman. DEQ, EGLE, has the monthly Gelman sampling all DEQ sampling, split samples, peripheral sampling, and static water levels in the well database. It has the petitions that we've done more than once. Dan did one way back when, and we did one around 1993, objecting to certain plans. There's a well logic database that anybody can get to at the EGLE site that can inform people that are interested. There were some Rockworks exports that Kevin provided, even though there was a problem matching up the well names. And of course, the EGLE keeps the administrative record for this site. And the administrative record has to be kept by court order. You can't get rid of anything, right, Dan?
Yeah, so this site, this project is under court order to maintain.
And then, of course, it has all the reports and the well logs and the maps and the correspondence with the company and the stakeholders. Some of the earlier ones were, if they were important enough, got put in a spreadsheet and sent out monthly, and then a list of those was kept. And that's kind of fallen by the wayside over the last few years. But Dan, I think you try to keep it up every year or so.
Yeah, yearly, year and a half.
And the later list of that has links to those documents, so you don't actually have to go and find your copy of the physical document or in the library or something, because there's a link to the EGLE repository of those, which is good. It may not work for some of the bigger documents, the big maps and things. It may not render properly. And of course, SRSW, which keeps a lot of the information for CAR, because we have no other free way of doing it. Actually, it's not free anymore. I now have to pay, I think, $15 a year to get it from 15 gigabytes to 100 gigabytes. And none of the local government entities can do that. So right now it's all Google Docs and Google Drive. And those all include things, the Google mashups you keep seeing me use, the well cross sections and files and cross tabs for those, the plume, the flow map aggregation, the well logs, the gamma logs, all the data aggregation and checking is all the process to get to the Google Earth mashups and to summarize the data. Links to all the stakeholder websites is on srsw.org. Just bring that up quickly. This is the landing page for srsw.org. And over the left side here are links to all the other stakeholders who come to CAR meetings. And I even use this when I want to look up, like I've got somebody in Scio Township, and I look up on the Scio Township website where they live in Scio Township, because that's public information. So this is a good way to link to all of the other sites. Now, I fully intend that someday would get incorporated into a card version of that, but until then, SRSW is hosting all that stuff. Let's see, where did they leave off? And then one of the big ones on the SRSW website, if you scroll down, you see this timeline. And I haven't updated this for a couple of years, but I've got to do it. If you click on it again, you can zoom in and see more of the details. So the first part of it over here is actually from the DNR, right before the DEQ got pulled out of the DNR. So this was actually from a report that the DNR did. And then what I did is I just extended it over the years and added in annotations. Now, what would really be cool for a student project would be to make an interactive version of this so you could pick like categories, like give me all the legal events. And then as you find the legal event, you click on it, you get all of the information about that legal event, interactive.
Is this the only timeline available that you're aware of?
No, the city had a timeline and they kept it up for a while, and I think the county has done a couple versions for presentations and that, but it's not
Not as good as that.
well, it's different because it's for a different purpose. Their timeline was mostly in a PowerPoint format. And this has got its problems too, because you can't possibly put everything in. I mean, a year here is like a quarter inch on me. And think about everything that happened in the last couple of years.
Smaller font.
We gotta be able to zoom in and make it bigger, so that, if anybody has good timeline software or knows of something, or if you got a student project that wants to make this so it's sustainable, it can't just be a one-off. It's gotta be able to be updated and corrected and commented on by all the stakeholders. But it can inform you pretty well, because you can hear, I've highlighted here in the past how much dioxane was removed, how much they said was left. You know, they first said 64,000 pounds was left, and then they had to up that to 80,000 pounds. And of course, they removed about 113,000 pounds to date, so they removed more dioxane than they said was down there, and they're no longer making predictions because they were so bad at it.
Nice job, Roger. Nice job.
Anyway, so that's one of the key things that we have. And then, of course, all the meeting videos and photos, I've been videoing all the meetings since I've been chair. So we can have those posted on YouTube and go back and for one thing, it helps Beth do the minutes. By the way, you know, everybody should know this. On YouTube, after a day or two, the transcript shows up. You go down to below the video, you can say show transcript.
Automatically or something?
Yeah,
I just tried to take really.
yeah, so you could actually cut and paste. You gotta correct some of their interpretations of, what was that word?
Yeah.
Like, the one that caught my eye was PFAS.
Oh.
It came out as P, fast. I don't think that was what we talked about. Anyway.
Some of those are funny. Yeah.
Well, you know, it did a pretty good job of it.
Yeah, they are.
And then, of course, all the news listings that we try to keep up to date, and that's under the news section. Each of these things on the right side has its own section, and it's also double listed even on the, so the Ann Arbor news, well, actually, this is not just Ann Arbor, Ann Live, this is all news stories in reverse chronological order, so you can click on it, and you can get a link right to that story, and then do your searches or whatever you want to do at that point. I will point out that MLive dropped all their comments just a few days ago.
I noticed. Technically historical, they're still there.
No.
AnnArbor.com, still there.
Oh, AnnArbor.com,
Yep.
but not MLive.
No.
None of it, so, yeah, I have something to say about that in a minute. Anyway, so then,
Say one thing,
yeah,
that even though we don't have the comments there, we have a new Facebook page, Ann Arbor Politics, where it looks like most of the MLive articles about local politics are posted, and then people are commenting below.
if you're on Facebook, right?
If you're on Facebook.
Yes.
Yeah, but, well, I might as well talk about it now. I complained about this to MLive. I said, because I put a lot of comments out there to correct what people were interpreting but not, the articles were, actually, Ryan was really good on the articles, but it was mostly comments about the articles, people raising issues, and clearly they didn't have, so I tried to correct any disinformation. So I asked them, I said, well, can I at least go back in this last couple of days and download all my comments? And they said, no. And I said, well, at least consider giving all the comments to archive.org, the Wayback Machine, so at least history would have a set of what people were talking about back in, these 15, how long's that been around? 20 years, 15 years? But they said no. In fact, if you go back to the news listings, you know, the clipping file that I helped scan, those do have the newspaper letters to the editor. We do have that history, but we've lost the in-live equivalent.
I think it's still there.
Somebody still has it, but it's not available.
I had an open page that had the comments exposed. And 2 days later, I went back to that page online, and I still could access all the comments to
You
that
just couldn't
page.
post new.
I couldn't post new ones.
I'd like to see a screen image of that, because
So there's
when I looked, it
probably
wasn't there. Now fortunately, what I did for the last 2 or 3 years, when I made a comment, I would make a copy of it and send it to our archive page at SRSW.
I went back and Googled a thing that they had an article about me when I did some graffiti removal for school. And it came up, like, just by searching for MLive graffiti, whatever, and where it was, and my business name.
Your article was there.
Yeah, an article was there, and the comments were there at the bottom, but it was just like this blowout, it was like a text purge thing.
Oh.
Really?
Where it was like old names, whoever the names were, and then a thing, the formatting wasn't great, but they existed still.
Yeah.
Oh.
My understanding that.
Yeah.
Maybe it depends what kind of browser you use.
Yeah, it could be, or what, you know, or the age of the article when it got archived, maybe. I don't, this was just a couple years
If
ago.
anybody sees those again, make a screenshot so I'm gonna see. I can go back and maybe.
Well, AnnArborNews.com still has their comments. That's way back though. Then they went them live, and now those are all gone theoretically. They're not
Yeah.
readily available.
So that's a little disturbing to have information that was there just suddenly gone.
That's,
Under my own name.
That's the web.
Too many
yeah.
comments.
And that's not a future I want to live in. So the other thing we do, and we're going to be doing it again at these 2 events coming up, is have information. We have an information booth at the Earth Day Festival, which is now going to be at the Gala Park and at the Green Fair. And once in a while, they'll do one at the Ann Arbor Day, but sometimes that's a problem. So that's part of what we do. Let's see.
The people can come and help at those tables if they like.
Yeah, is there a place where we can sign up to do that?
Yeah, we'll talk about it. The next meeting is April 7th, so we can definitely talk about it then, or,
Well, we just need people to show up and.
yeah.
So that's the April 19th, the Earth Day, and the Green Fair is around the 20th.
June 12th.
12th.
Is it?
Okay.
Let me get through this real quick here. So that was SRSW.org and all the information about it. That the EGLE Gelman website is, as Dan had intimated, is being revised slowly.
Yeah, they surprised me this week with, looked a little different in certain locations.
So, but that
Something didn't work either, so.
Yeah, so I guess we'd like to have more input into that, because it's really hard to use.
Why not?
And it's not very consistent. And of course, your docs list that you update every year, we'd like to see it updated more often.
Yep.
Now, here's the question I have. The administrative record you have to keep under court order because of the CJ. Now, if the CJ goes away and it becomes an EPA site, what happens to the administrative record? Does it still have to be kept?
Well, yeah, we would keep an administrative, just like any site.
Right.
You know, the state, if state's involved with a site, there's an administrative record.
And you won't be purging any,
We
you
won't-
won't be whittling it down or
they're-
getting rid
they're-
of comments
Now,
from
you
the
fall
public.
into holding times required of a regular site, you know, what, there may be allowed to get rid of some stuff after so many years.
Okay,
So,
that's not okay.
well, I'm just saying, and that's,
But right now, you can't get
that's
rid
why
of it.
they're going electronically. Electronically, it's easy to keep everything. I mean,
It's easy to keep
Gelman
it, but
is,
it may not be-
is mainly a paper file.
If they keep it electronically, then the problem is, as you change databases, as you change
Absolutely.
formats, how do you get to that old data? We've already seen losses of information in these years that I've been involved. And as we go forward another several decades, we have to make sure we don't lose stuff.
So this administrative record, so there's a state record retention rules that apply to it somehow?
Well, Gelman, it's because it's court, it's legal hold, you know.
Okay.
But on any of this other, let's say another site, there are, you know, EGLE has policy, retention policy that would be, I
So
mean, I had.
Gelman's being charged by the court under the OCJ to retain
Right.
these records.
Right.
Yeah.
We're not allowed to get rid of it because it's on hold.
But the CJ goes away and it's not in state court anymore. Then
Potentially,
what?
yeah, then.
Then what's
then it
the
could-
time period?
I have no idea, Roger.
Can you
Because,
find out?
Can you send me an email with the exact question?
Okay.
You know, so under, you know, rather than me writing down and interpreting, if you send me an email with, you know, I'll interpret it wrong. But you know, I'll get the better answer with how your question.
I just want to bring up a couple other sites. There's an EPA site in Michigan, the Metamora site. It turns out that Michael Burkhoff is the current project manager of it.
Yeah. Yeah, when he comes over, he always double dips. He comes over for Gelman or when he did, he also would do Metamora meetings too.
So it turns out one of the council people perhaps wrote me and said, well, you know, the Metamora site proves that we shouldn't go to the EPA route because it took this long to get it converted and there was problems with it. And then I called Michael and talked to him and got a different story. So that's all I'm going to have to say about that. There's another site.
I'd like to get to the truth.
Yeah.
That's been a Superfund site for a long time, very long time.
And they do a 5-year review. They do
General Motors was potentially a responsible party at it.
Was that one part of your bailiwick at the time?
Next to my bailiwick.
So.
Did you want to say more about it?
About the Metamora site?
Yeah.
Well, the bottom line was that the EPA required the PRPs to do more sampling work around the site. And there's a link here to the 6th 5-year review. The EPA tended to have to do a 5-year review on all sites. And so this is the latest that we have. So it's not like it's going to take 30 years to get something going. It's going to take much shorter time because we have a head start on all this. And the other site that I found where it actually has a bigger dioxane footprint than Gelman site was the Bethpage, New York. It's a Superfund site, but it's a the New York State Superfund site.
State legal.
They have
Really?
tougher.
Yeah, I'm actually like.
And it's not just dioxane. They found the dioxane too late. It was TCE and all these other stuff. But they do have a solution coming down the pike now. It's going to be, was it $585 million or something like that? Over 110 years. Now,
That was Grumman?
Grumman and the Navy was involved.
Yeah.
So that's all out there on the available. The thing that caught my eye was that even though their lateral extent is bigger, it's 4 miles by 2 miles, the concentrations they had was much lower. You know, like triple digit, I think, something like that. Where, yeah, they had a whopping 160 parts per billion of dioxide. At the same time, we had 11,000 parts per billion. So that gives you some idea of the Gelman site is a Superfund size cleanup, but it's just not being handled in a Superfund appropriate way. Anyway, there's some links to that. Another thing that caught my eye there was the goals of the remediation. Full hydraulic containment of the dioxane plume, prevent further expansion of dioxane plume, reduce volume and contaminant concentrations, and clean up time frame, protect water supplies, treat water to meet all standards, protect the aquifer, return sufficient treated water back to the aquifer system, prevent depletion, and minimize impacts to the environment. So those were their goals.
No.
Oh, in Bethpage, yeah. I was like, they're not doing that here.
Well, that's why I thought this might be a good model, because they're already.
State of the art.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the other site that I did some findings on the Tucson Superfund site, somebody said, well, it took 14 years to implement the TCE cleanup process. And then when they discovered the dioxane, it took them another 14 years. But you got to remember that Tucson was a multiple PRB, multiple responsible parties, one of which probably involved the federal government. And it's at, of course, much lower concentrations than what we have. And then the other thing that just caught my eye this week was North Carolina dioxane discharges. Well, this is from the, what's it called, the contaminant, three-letter term, the inventory.
The TRI.
TRI, yeah, toxic release inventory. They released about 18,000 pounds of dioxane in 2018. 18,000 pounds. We're removing about 1,000 pounds a year at the guns. So that gives you some idea of what kind of, what are they creating there in North Carolina? Where's that dioxane going?
Well, they're floating it down the river, so it just goes out to sea.
We hope.
And they drink it in Wilmington.
Yeah, we hope. The other topic I had was outreach with CARD, and this is where we can talk about the CARD and the SRSW email list. Yahoo, we've had a long-standing SRSW Yahoo group list, and Yahoo deprecated a lot of their Yahoo group. They basically, the list will still work, but you can't do any of the attachments. You can't have their data set with it. So I tried to get in the last couple of days and manage that, and we don't have that many people on the SRSW list, so I just emailed everybody saying if we can't get this resolved, we're going to make sure you're on a CARD, one of the CARD email lists. Now, there's two CARD email lists. There's the one that the county gets, the listserv, that gets signed anytime somebody clicks on the link on the website to be added to that list. And of course, I think it gets added to whenever there's a meeting and you sign up, like even if you come here for the first time, I think you get added to that. Is that right, Beth?
If they come to a meeting, I ask them to invite them to CARD Core, and I invite them to the county listserv. And then from there, I don't know if they accept.
So you don't automatically add it to the county, you say, here's where you can go and do it, right?
Well, no, I add their name, but I think it's an invite.
Right.
Like, they get an invite that says, would you like to be, and, but I do both.
Yeah, now the difference, as I understand it, for the two lists, the two main CARD lists, is that the county listserv, that is primarily used to send meeting information notices to everybody. Like, here's the next CARD meeting, it's going to be about this, and put it on your calendar. The other list that we started when I became chair was to engage people more often than that. And so that's why we set up the CARD Core list, meaning you've been to a CARD meeting, engaged enough to actually come to a meeting, and you want to be kept abreast of anything that happened between card meetings. So we send out maybe, I don't know, 5 or 10 times a month, we'll send things to the card core, but one time a month we'll send it to the listserv. That's the kind of the dichotomy here. Now, we haven't double checked to see if everybody on the card core list is already on the listserv.
And
But
that's
we
what
can do that.
Shauna, is that what you always did too for?
I never completely did that, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
But this may be glad to help you with.
Okay.
Cross-check the two lists.
Or just, I didn't know if you invited to both, then we would know that it goes back that far. If you put them on both, or, but we can talk later.
Well, I at least once, I've exported the listserv emails and compared them with the card core list.
And I do know that everyone on Cardcore is on the listserv, I did check that. I
Okay,
wanted to
so
make
you're
sure
already
that
there, right.
they're getting, well, there's 67 Cardcore and there's over 400 listserv. When I send the listserv, not all of them, some are like old emails, maybe they don't go, but I think over 400.
What happens when they bounce? Do you know, Jenny?
No.
It goes into the listserv system.
Does it automatically take them out, or do we
It
have
does
to?
not.
Can we get a report like
It flags
annually?
them, yeah, I think we could look and see which are not good addresses.
Because we might as well do that rather than letting, languish.
So yes, I guess from history, historically, the county listserv was the only email list. So if people wanted to get updates, we sent periodic updates. So I guess I'm curious, do we need, I guess I just want to make sure we're properly communicating the purposes of the list and that members who can't attend regular meetings maybe miss that there's a hardcore list, that there's an advertisement that if you want more in-depth and not just, maybe we advertise one as meeting reminders and the other is like having a way for people to contact us about hardcore if they do want more in-depth updates.
I think that's why I put it on here, because I think that could be just a comment on the next time we send out to the listserv. We can add a comment, you're getting this because you're on this general listserv where you get a notice of meetings. But if you'd like to have more, there's this card core list where you get more emails. And the beauty of that is, then you can control, because it's a Google group, you can control how often you get the emails. You can get them as they come, you can get a daily summary, you can get a weekly summary or something like that. So if you're getting too many emails, you can control
So
it.
when you guys are doing your public events, do you say to people when they sign up for that email list, this is for meeting minutes only, or do you say this is for information about the plume and important updates and what's going on? Because I feel like maybe they don't know that there's two lists and there's an expectation that they are getting that information because that's how it's being presented to
And
them.
that could be true.
And then when
We
you
need to
started,
clarify that.
yeah, when you started Cardcore, did you invite everyone on the card list to Cardcore?
We may have.
No, we didn't. We didn't.
You sure?
Yeah.
just
As
let
a runner of
It
the
was
list,
only
yeah, we
people who
didn't.
came to meetings.
Well, that's part of the rule. I mean, you gotta show you're engaged.
Well, that's the rule that you make for Cardcore,
Right.
which is kind of a separate list of people now.
That's how we make most of our money on that list.
Well, let me know if you want me to send something, what we should say. Like,
Well, yeah, it's just trying to clarify, because we have these two listservs, and it's just trying to clarify.
So we could remove the restriction that you have to be at a meeting, be on the card core.
You just are gonna get maybe more emails.
Great, if you want to sign up for more, go for it.
Yeah.
Charge
Yeah,
That's a
sign
good
up
idea.
for more.
We should do
Right, I
that.
mean, you might get more engaged people that way.
Well, certainly.
Or the people who, don't want to get that many emails, just want to get meeting updates. But I'm guessing that it might be one and the same. You can
Or
always
we just
unsubscribe.
combine everything too.
Having one list does make things clear.
Well,
what was the rationale for creating the Cardcore list?
to keep people informed between meetings. The
But
people-
only
How did that differ
The
from
people that come to
Right.
meetings, the people that are more engaged, to keep them up to date.
But why was there felt to be a need for a separate list?
So we
What
don't
was the rationale?
dun the other 300 people.
So you don't what?
We don't
overwhelmed.
overload them.
And then they just totally unsubscribe or say, please take me off the list because I'm getting way too many emails.
Sounds to me under that circumstance, it's a good way to keep the same criteria.
Yeah, that's true.
I mean, we could survey them and say, how many of you would mind getting X number more emails? We'll just combine the list.
I think you've got a good thing going, I think you should see what you got.
Well, what's the purpose of, so does it just feel good to have 400 people on this list if you don't use it for anything other than meeting agendas?
Well, we used it one other time when, like, the joint meetings, I think we sent it to everyone on a card list.
So, okay, so meeting notices?
Yeah.
Strictly meeting notices?
That's really what it's
How about
for.
minutes?
But we don't, like, overwhelm them with the, you know.
Minutia of
This is the
current topics.
Bethpage, yeah, it's that we send to everybody, the Bethpage site that Roger likes, you know, or
It's more
or
public
Dan
notice.
McNell wants to send something about the MS4, you know, I
So out of
don't.
curiosity, I know Beth, you signed up for the card calendar on the county
Yes.
webpage. Do you get meeting reminders from that? Like, could we send a notice to people if they wanted to receive meeting reminders?
Oh, and just do away with the list.
But I don't know how, I'm wondering, but I
You can't touch the
haven't
agenda.
actually signed up for it.
It reminded me a half hour before today, you know, I got a little reminder.
She's talking about subscribing to the county card calendar.
And then we could keep that more up to date with the public meetings as
Is
they
that a
become
Google
scheduled.
Calendar?
No. It's-
No, but the Google Calendar can subscribe to that.
Okay.
I
believe you.
I will tell you, you will lose people. Because even at the university, where people are,
Smart.
well, presumably, and have to do certain things and use technology, there are so many who do not understand how to join a calendar or how, you know, they just don't.
Yes.
I used to lead a center and it just, I bet nobody,
That's good
I
feedback.
bet hardly any, no matter how many times he said, do it, do it, do it.
What if we have our analytics and see how many people access that?
I just.
But you're right, I mean, I don't disagree, I think it's
You're just
probably
gonna
true.
lose a lot
Because
of
it's a tricky
people.
thing.
And that's like what James said too, maybe since it's not broke now, but I could invite all the 400, see if anyone wanted more
There you go,
information.
there you go.
Yes.
Please, yeah, let me, or
And maybe just put it on the next notice.
the next notice, so they don't get another,
Right.
yeah.
Once a year, you could ask the same question,
Mhm.
you know.
Well, we could also make it clear whenever there's a sign-up list.
Well, everyone could think about it too.
Just
We
add
talk
another
about it
column.
Next.
You want to be notified of meetings? Check. You want to be notified of more detailed conversations? Check. And of course, that should be a tablet, so we don't have to read your handwriting.
It is difficult to read people's handwriting.
Right.
There's a number of emails.
Anybody's got an old
Never
tablet
got
they
it.
want to donate to cards, so we can have it at all these meetings, we'll set up an app for it.
I tried that. It's harder than you think.
All right.
Humans are really hard to
Maybe we need a scribe. What was your name? Anyway, the other part of this is, because it's a Google group, that hardcore is, somebody new coming in we can give them access as once they're a hardcore member and see all the prior messages so that they can be caught up to date. Now, it's in chronological order, it's not in any other order.
I say we hire somebody, not somebody else.
I mean, I think it's a good idea.
No, it's already there.
Yeah, I agree.
It's automatic.
I agree. That sounds like a plan. And it sounds better than,
Because otherwise, you know how long it takes to bring somebody up to date on this.
right. It's their option. It's there for,
For them to peruse.
There
Yeah.
you go.
Now, along those same lines, we're doing more social media. We're doing more things on Nextdoor and Facebook. And now that there's a Facebook politics page, we'll probably be doing more comments on there. And as I mentioned before, I've archived my in-law list.
Who is we doing more on social media?
I'm not on Facebook.
Anybody
But I tweet.
that's reading the articles and has a comment, they will make a comment.
No, I'm saying, what is that? I mean, is there a current Facebook page? Is there? This is what I'm asking. I don't know what you mean.
No, there is not a card.
So somebody has set up.
There's an SRSW Facebook page.
Okay, all right.
So somebody has set up a Facebook page to try and replace MLAC comments page. So you can type comments and make it available to the whole community. I forget what the title of that is, but Stephen Ranzini set it up.
It's like an Ann Arbor politics something.
That's the one.
What's it called?
It's Ann Arbor Politics.
Ann Arbor Politics.
And it was set up by University Bank President Stephen Ranzini.
Ranzini.
Yeah.
So he said in his email that he was trying to figure out a way to keep the community engaged and have thoughtful comments, not craziness. So that's.
Yeah, we'll see how that works out over time.
So that's one avenue that CARD members could make comments on that.
Right.
Maybe educate the public, maybe
Yes.
correct some misunderstanding.
That's the we.
That's the we. That's Roger, Rita.
No, Rita.
We also are trying to engage more volunteers until we can get some kind of public funding to actually have staff. We just had a pre-meeting with the Wayne State project, and so we'll see if that goes in the future, since this is the inaugural cohort, right?
Yeah.
So one of the things you're gonna be doing is thinking about setting the ground rules for the next cohorts.
That's right.
Yeah. Unfinished business.
No, just the process.
Yeah.
Write a guidebook.
Yeah, we're setting the bar.
So you gotta take good notes about what you guys have done to help them hit the ground running. And,
Promote CARD.
and, you know, anything we can do to help you out.
Great, thanks.
Now, the other person I invited tonight was Sarah Talpos, is that how you say it?
Bill, I think.
Oh, shoot, I didn't invite her. I didn't get to introduce her. Anyway, she's a freelance reporter. And she's been writing about, most recently about PFAS, how communities respond to PFAS problems. And so I invited her to observe, and I'm planning to see, you know, somebody's got to write a book about this. So, we'll see how that goes.
A reality show.
But only once, I said, you can't write the book yet because it's not done. But you can write the first chapter, or the first set of encyclopedia. We also have former Gelman employees. I have another one on the list. Let's see, Diane still here? Yeah. So if you come up with any more former Gelman employees that want to do what you do.
I've contacted a couple,
Yeah.
and
They're not interested, not even over drinks.
Yeah.
in the dogfight.
Roger, who's doing those interviews? Like that name?
Well, that's what we have to decide. I think Jim's not here today, but he's the one that's designated.
Out of town this month.
Right, but he'll be the one that'll probably be involved mostly in keeping track of the interviews, and then we'll pick and choose depending on what the subject matter of the person.
All right.
So the name you gave me, I had a call.
He told me, he said that he didn't think he could help much because he referred himself as a peon in the company.
Right.
But he can't be too much of a peon because he did that art that's sitting out there.
Yeah.
That sculpture, that,
Oh, yeah?
yeah, so he must have had some connection to the company.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've kicked myself in the past when like there was a guy that dug ditches, told me about how he had to dig ditches around the Gelman property. And he'd be down in the ditch, and he could only stay down there about 20 minutes. And then he had to get out and get fresh air. And I'm not sure where the ditch was.
All right, Roger, I gotta keep you back on track because we're 25 minutes with 30 minutes of agenda items left.
Okay.
I mean, the last one is open discussion, but.
This next one here is, the last meeting, besides former government employees, the emeritus stakeholders. And I've got a handful of them.
You're all exhausted.
Just, you can think of anything. Well, everybody's here. Who was in your position before you came here? Those are the emeritus people that I think would be interesting to get their institutional knowledge documented in some way.
Well, we paid them enough.
Yeah, anyway, so that's, this next item is kind of timely. As the coronavirus spreads, instead of canceling meetings, I propose that we have remote meetings.
I agree.
We need the bar where it's.
What would be that
We're working
method
on
of
this right now, probably,
connectivity?
right?
And alcohol.
The county, is this what you're working on right now? I'm sure.
Yes. Right, but how.
I could be
how
streaming
hard
this
to
right now.
implement that is a different story.
And talking to remote presence devices around the room.
And then what would I?
Like a teleconference.
Would you?
There'd be an app on your
phone or
computer.
business?
or on your phone.
number or something?
Yeah.
Would this violate the Open Meetings Act, and how would the public access this meeting? Would be an open conference?
We're not covered by the.
Yeah, we are not. I think you are because of the resolution, but I'm not 100% sure, right? So the city and the county, I don't know if Scio Township or Ann Arbor Township have resolutions.
Can you check on that and get it
Yep.
resolved
I'll double check.
for the next meeting? Because it might be that next meeting.
Yeah.
But if CARD just publicized a call-in number and anyone in the public could call in, would that?
Yeah, I don't know if it has to be an in-person meeting or if it is just access to the meeting.
Well, I think it,
Yeah, that's.
So the call-in would be like a listen,
Yeah.
talk, but
But
you're
we're
suggesting
probably gonna
some
have to have
kind
that
of
question anyway for other public
Zoom.
gatherings.
Yeah, for, I mean, we're
Yeah,
trying to
anything
figure
we
out
cover
our
under
end.
the meetings act.
So we could do like a Zoom meeting or something?
Zoom
Yes,
or,
but time
Right.
out. We're not covered by the Open Meetings Act. We're not a governmental body. We're not elected. We're not deliberating. We're not making decisions. We have no power.
Right. So there was a county resolution and a city resolution back in 2006 that formed CARD or
Yes.
whatever, and there are appointed members from, well, at least the county still does it, I don't know if the city still does it. And so that was something that we had to check about whether or not, it's more publicizing the meeting locations. and things like that.
Availability.
You know, I would speak to that because
Yeah.
the city council doesn't have a.
Yeah, I don't know what your
sign
resolution
card.
says, because I
just-
don't pay attention.
Well, I just sort of, I'm gonna dig that up and double check that.
Yeah, we
I
can do
just
that
sort of
right
took
there.
it upon myself to act as sort of a de facto representative or whatever. And I was telling Beth at the start of the meeting, or right before we got in here, that if I had something interesting to say, I would, ask for 5 minutes or 2 minutes or whatever on the agenda and say, here's your update from council. And it might be, did we talk about this, did we talk about that, what's the progress of our own, whatever we're doing. You know, if it's something that's important, otherwise I wouldn't ask for a spot. But I think we should move to formalize and look back at that resolution.
Yeah, so in 2006, they
Yeah.
appointed Councilmember Woods as a representative to
Yup.
CARD.
Randy Woods.
Yeah.
Well, that's the seat I sit in now, so that worked out.
There you go.
We switched from Mondays to Tuesdays so that council
Right.
members could come to the meeting, and none of them ever did,
Right.
except for you guys.
Now, it's changed.
Yeah.
Well, Wendy came down to council last night and spoke, and we had a nice talk afterwards, and,
Yeah, so I'll make a note to check in
okay, I'll
on
look
that.
into that. yeah.
Environmental
I'm sure you're
Commission
welcome to
here.
check in
Yeah,
on it.
Steve Brown's here, I think, right? Yeah.
Randy Woods was.
Any other comments, Roger, before we move?
Oh, she may just sit down and talk about people, I don't know.
No, I guess not. I mean, what process we use for that remote meeting might be limited in terms of numbers. You know, the technology, the bandwidth might be a problem. We might have to do it from another location if we do that. And so that's something that, how many people would participate
Well,
remotely?
I've used Zoom in places where there were like 50 plus participants.
But what was the bandwidth?
What do you mean by that?
The bandwidth going, it was video, right?
You could have 50 people, more than 50 people.
But you had to have enough bandwidth to upload.
No, it's each person's
Video.
house.
Well, most
Each
people
person.
turned off their videos. Because you only turn on the video when you need to show something that takes a video. That helps a lot. That helps a lot.
Right.
Usually there's something like 10 people that have their videos on. The worst thing is when they have their microphones on.
But that's again on their end. It's the upload. I guess I almost should have tried it here today because one of our board members is homesick with flu symptoms. And that would have been a good test. but I didn't have time to render it. So one of the ways to do that is to capture what's on the screen and send it out.
Well, you can do like screen
It's
sharing.
easy to
Yeah,
share.
and one thing that I'll flag is we've used, when we've had like the big meetings in the past year, we've gotten conference lines from the township, and I know they've got video capabilities that we've never like had to broadcast at. We've had people call in to those big communal meetings from here. So if we like were to all call in and use the Scio Township line, and if most of us sacrificed our video capabilities and just used audio, and maybe one person, like if
Yeah.
you used
Yeah.
screen share and the rest of us just called in and were able to communicate that
They're
way.
free to listen.
Or, you know, however,
Yeah.
we're gonna, you know. just-
Yeah, the
It's
feedback
video
is a
based.
different way though.
Yeah.
It's the-
Yeah.
You could have a chat sidebar, or you could have
Right, and we all just mute and
Be
raise our
able to-
hands or
be able
whatever.
to turn on different
Not all muting,
people who
raising
want to
hands
talk.
is not always.
That's what ITRC does when they have their webinars.
Yep.
They mute most of the people, but you can unmute people to talk. Anyway, so that's, I wanted to bring that up because it's timely. I'm just going to play this one thing. I'm not going to go over these. There's a lot of deep wells and a lot of shallow wells that the company quit sampling, even though there's double, triple, single parts per billion.
Roger, I'm working along those lines. Jenny asked that same question of me, and I'm working with her to get her information on what the latest monitoring plans and why wells have not been sampled. So almost in the middle of that.
Good.
I looked at your questions there, and I noticed, okay, I have some answers for that. So let me get that done, completed for her, and I should be able to.
That'll be
update my
next,
card.
ongoing business next month.
Yes, please. I'm not, sure I'll, have everything, but please keep it on the agenda.
All right, I'm gonna play this 1 30-second clip. Was my main takeaway from the U of M PPB to PFAS seminar that they had February 20th when I was gone. I watched it online, but then I looked at it later and picked out this one little clip. So we saw this earlier, but not everybody was here.
Okay.
Oh.
So listen carefully because I don't have the speakers.
It's got
Or the bandwidth,
closed-
apparently.
It's got closed caption.
Of course.
Looks like my computer at
This is
work.
what happens when I try to show something in
We
class.
tried remotely.
Oh, maybe there's an upload going on. All right, so I'll just send out the link later.
Well, you want to say what the gist was? Just.
Yeah, what was the gist?
It just was that Park Pavilion was one drop of water in a regular sized swimming pool, and people like to minimize the importance of exposure to low concentrations of these environmental contaminants with those kinds of analogies, but she pointed out that hormones operate on part per billion basis all the time, and I will tell you that some operate on part per trillion basis also. It doesn't take a lot to, and then you also have the issue of, there's never one thing.
Immunocompromised.
Right.
too.
Yeah.
Roger, can you share via card cord? And then,
It'll also, I guess we can put it in the minutes, but we can share it before that.
or we can proceed to load before the end of the meeting.
Yeah. I could share most of my notes here in cardboard, and then it can also be incorporated into the minutes. There are some discussions points beyond that. Anybody else has got any general discussion points? Time for the posters.
Okay, so we presented 2 posters at the U of M 50th Earth Day event with Emily, and here's one of them. This was the quote-unquote card poster, and so there was time for the oversold people, number of people who were at the meeting. They not sold out, but they oversubscribed right away, so they were very popular event to go to. And we got a lot of nice comments. We didn't have as much time as we thought we had because they had some problems with getting speakers finishing up on time.
This
So we
was
have-
always during the breaks or something.
Yeah, so this was about a half an hour with lunch. So you went and got your lunch and you went and looked at posters. And we had a lot of people come by. I put a sign-up sheet for card and a couple people signed on.
Dr. Birnbaum came by.
Dr. Birnbaum, and Dr. Batterman came by and talked about the
Dr.
vapor
Birnbaum's
treatment.
the former director of the NIEHS of NIH.
She said, "Where's Rita?" And I was out of town. Anyway, so it was a very, I think popular meeting, and we were glad we were there, and trying to interact with U of M and work with, and residents. And they brought in a lot of volunteers who work in Detroit, and, Wayne, probably work with Wayne State people, and other upstate Michigan. So it was interesting to hear all these people's stories. They had time to present their issues during the meeting, which was great to see that. And this is Bob Bailey, Dr. Bob Bailey, who's sitting at the end of the table here. What we talked about earlier, the vapor intrusion. So Bob can talk about this if you want.
Yeah, well, this is simply, is simply the issue of contaminated water getting into people's houses as a liquid, not as a vapor, and then evaporates, and you get to inhale a bit of it. And so I just had a little bit of general information about how chemicals volatilize from water, and dioxane doesn't do it, whereas gasoline components and dry cleaners, vapor intrusion into neighbors' houses is big. It's a very common issue anyway. But for dioxane, it really has to come in as water and then do its thing.
Okay. And the controversy about this, of course, was because the time scale was tight on getting these posters done, and some of us were out of town. We didn't get to review the final version of the posters with everybody at a meeting like this. So there was enough of us on the board who reviewed it and decided it was things we had already talked about at prior card meetings. And we did put a disclaimer above the word card on each poster saying this, something to that effect. This does not necessarily reflect the opinions, or it hasn't been reviewed by the full card group. So, and we'll try to do a better job with that next time.
I thought it was nice. I saw a little sticker on there.
Yeah,
I mean, it was nice. The graphic I really liked on the first one was a comparison of the three-dimensional where it goes up and shows the concentration. Then next to it, you had the topographic type map, the contour map, sort of. And I thought that was pretty interesting. It really shows where the site's seated, where it's going, where the river cuts through. And it's just a nice new way of visualizing the way the city sits. And then I also found the vapor intrusion kind of informative because we talk about it all the time, but I've never seen the science on it. And that was a cool little concept. I'm really glad I
it's a
could
good
only make it
summary.
for 3-4 hours that day, but it was cool.
It kind of makes me wonder if we should be doing more posters for these different public events.
I think that some of the ways we visualize the plume are interesting when people see it, when I show it to them, and they're kind of startled to recognize where it is, like the physical dispersion of it. And you have it in your head that it's some plume that's in the water. And then we start seeing sections and the various views. It's kind of illuminating for people. It really gets them interested, I think, too. We don't want to have undue concern over it, but I think it's good to inform people. So.
And we represent, I think, very well, mild and well, and, we're not out there, misrepresenting card in any negative
We
way.
want U of M involved, and we want citizens involvement, and that was one way to do that.
Yeah,
We
it's
had-
good.
we got, it was a good venue to go to.
Well, yeah, it was all citizens around the state
Yeah.
that had been activists in their, like Roger, Dan, and.
Yeah, I'm really sorry I wasn't able to be there. But I
That
was-
had done this at different sites all over Michigan with the water, and it was good.
And I'm glad to see posters. I think posters or more posters are ways to engage the public. It's great. And my point was, not all CARD members had input. So just to keep in mind moving forward, because even our less involved members might have really good perspective on, just as someone with less information, understanding the posters too.
Yeah.
And then just to realize we all have varying viewpoints. I think we're all in CARD. We all have the same overall goal here, but just to make sure each voice is heard.
I think there's an issue with getting everybody involved in something like this, and that you can't have 400 people contribute to a poster.
No, she's talking about just having a time frame.
I think we talked about it at several meetings, and so it was out there, and the abstract we submitted was sent around.
But Vince, this is not just posters we're talking about.
Okay.
Because it's any communications that are under the CARD umbrella.
Following a process in the bylaws.
It's not in the bylaws.
No, it was
I don't
thinking
see
about
it
a
in the
vote.
bylaws.
Yeah, I guess, well, when I read the bylaws, I'm looking at the part.
Let's not get down in the weeds on this, because we're gonna do a better job next
It's a really
time.
important point, though.
But this,
So there's
okay.
only 20 voting members.
Hold on. Point of order. Let's-
Not 400 voting members.
Listen. This is water under the bridge, over the dam.
I agree.
We're gonna do a better job next time, and we're gonna do it for all types of communications. Whether it's a PowerPoint that you present, whether it's somebody that,
And who is you?
anybody that's representing
At the
CARD.
Are they representing CARD?
Well, but
At the mayor's fair?
Yeah, at the Green
Well,
Fair, when we
Green Fair.
when we have a, we go to Earth Day.
if it's factual data, yeah, you're right. We can't go into a lot of detail, but we don't have to say, if you have something, let's get into the weeds a little bit, because how do you say we're members of CARD, but we're not representing the whole CARD?
Well, that's what we ended up putting on the poster.
So maybe that's what we have to do. But
Or
what
you
I
just
wanted
make
to
CARD
point
all
out,
the posters, and then you're good to go from there forward.
what I wanted to point out is that in my whole history on this, the more eyes we have on the data and the presentations and stuff, the better it is, because we can find problems. Now, people are complaining that didn't have a chance to review it, but then when you did have a chance to review it, you have a problem with any of the content.
I would have liked to provide it.
That's what I want to make sure we have eyes to make sure that we find any content problems, anything that's misrepresenting reality.
Or there's something that the county would want up on there to reach out to the community in a better way, since we got a poster going out there, or...
Well, we tried pretty hard to get this out. Rita got the notice about abstract requests. That was like several months ahead.
It takes a while to get the poster together.
It takes a while to do a poster. I got one poster set out here, Bob brought his poster, if you want to look at it. They're pretty complicated, but it's basically, now Bob's is a little bit different, but the CARD poster is everything has been presented at
Right,
CARD
right.
and has been looked at by CARD members.
And I think Bob says too.
Bob's has been, yeah,
It's been
not as much, but
described, but
probably
you
has.
haven't waded through
Yeah. So Bob
my
may open this up.
numerical calculations to make sure I didn't make a decimal error.
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I think I have a mistake on
And
that.
Rita spent a lot of time. Rita spent a lot of time on these posters, and so I give her a lot of credit for the amount of time and the expertise she had to put it together.
yeah, it was all good. It's a good outcome, and we got more information out to the public, which is.
We're running out of time.
And that was the
Yeah.
intention. The intention was simply that this was an opportunity, because this symposium, which, and I don't run that center anymore, but it was called Research to Action, and they specifically, in the call out, asked for community members to submit abstracts. And so December 4th, I sent an abstract out to every member of the board. And I said, should we do this? Nobody said a different process was required.
Well, I guess I was looking at it like under the executive director, and kind of their duties was preparing information and working with the officers to assemble information and data, prepare annual and special reports.
She was on the email.
Right, in December, and then when did she see the first poster?
I know, because you know what, I had 2.5 weeks' notice. Or when it was accepted, to when I got to go.
But she could have worked with you during that time. That's
But
what
I never got one email reply from Jenny, not one, saying, good idea, I want to be a co-author, I don't want to be a co-author, if you have this concern. That never happened, so I just thought you weren't interested. I thought it was an FYI, quite frankly,
Yeah.
and it wasn't anything intentional.
And the other thing I'll remind everyone is that I, as chair, am designated as the sole
to the
spokesperson
media,
for CART.
right, to the media.
But you
It
can
says
give
on
the
bylaws.
card position,
Yeah.
but not
And I
every commissioner has a
designate
Rails
to
card
the,
position
I
necessarily.
designate to the executive director anything that I would like to be worked on. So you're basically
Roger, we got
like
5
staff.
minutes.
5 minutes.
We got 5 minutes,
All
right?
right, so.
Yeah, let's do this last thing because this is important.
I want the update.
The,
Oh, yeah, the dioxane in the water, we all know it's there now, right? And
So did
Ann Arbor-
everyone see that the city blank had more dioxane in it
Yes.
than anything
Yeah,
else?
yeah. So this
I'm
question-
sorry, what was the first part?
So
The city-
so when you're doing a water test, you have a blank, and your blank is supposed to be zero.
Yeah.
And that's your control to say that the test went the right, like, all protocols were followed. The test blank had more dioxane than was in the source water and the drinking water, so I have
Where
concerns.
does that come from?
Lab contamination, lab error.
How would they have dioxane in the lab?
It's an outside laboratory. They-
Pardon?
Hey, look, it's well known that most cosmetics
No, that's
Not
and
that much. though.
detergents.
Oh, absolutely.
10, over 10 parts per million.
Yeah.
Per million.
In the
10
river?
parts per million.
In
No, no,
cosmetics.
Cosmetics. no.
cosmetics.
Yeah, but I mean, how did it get in the intake, the Barton intake?
No, I was gonna finish.
No,
No,
no, it's
so-
in the-
so what we're
it's in- It's
saying-
in the sampling bottle.
It
We're
came from
saying
the
that
lab.
It's
Somebody in the
because the
lab
blank had
contaminated
it,
everything.
the lab error may mean, since the blank had it, I'm not trusting that data. No, that's not to say that it couldn't be there, because we've known it's might have been detected before.
They're retesting.
Low
They-
levels.
Brian said they're
Yeah.
retesting, and that's
Exactly.
good, it's happening already.
So low.
But
I
don't
will
know that
point
that
out-
was clearly communicated in the media story, but
I agree.
Well, or it wasn't communicated in the email I got from the city.
I had a
mean, I
resident
just-
in
it
the,
did actually say it in there, but
I
I
see the
agree, maybe
graph.
it wasn't.
I had a
All I
fourth ward
see is
resident
the
who's like a
dioxane in the
scientist
water.
type, and she
Yeah,
sent me a
if you do
nice
the whole
email. Did you
thing-
see that from Diane?
Yes,
And she
excellent.
sent me a very interesting email about the process of the blanks and everything. I agree that it's,
You gotta see what's.
you hate to see it, but it, from what she told me, it's like, she had concerns about the way the test was handled because of that result. So,
Yeah.
and she's gonna actually teach me more about it. So.
So the test limit is .05,
Uh-huh.
and we find dioxane at a lower level.
Also not able to be validated.
Yes, so I question why we're actually, as a city, reporting something.
Because you're
that-
super transparent and awesome that way.
Yeah, but.
We asked- it's because we asked them to.
Bad, right? I mean, that's
We
part of
asked
the
them
deal.
to
The city is
report
not
the
committed to
results of the
transparency.
It's just, it should have had a disclaimer
Well,
or.
right,
or
that
it shouldn't have.
But I don't know that the media reported it that way.
Or
But
everyone that
that's-
gets these
that's part of the
emails.
challenge, is it's
Like,
we're talking about technically
I mean, it's a
complicated
bullet
technical
email
information.
sent out to everyone that subscribes. I get them for planning issues and everything, and, I mean, I'm a layperson, I didn't know what that meant.
I told Ryan
That's
about
good feedback,
that.
because
I
I'll
texted him
take that
about
back.
it.
to
Yeah, I mean, it could have been in the.
Because it did say it in there, I think
No.
maybe the note underneath there, when you copied and
It's a
pasted
low
it,
number.
you didn't
Oh.
include the note that was underneath that graph there. See the note estimated, blah, blah,
Yeah.
blah.
But how are we supposed to know what that means? It's all in
Yes.
technical, you're right.
Yeah, well, I mean,
Translated.
estimated
I mean,
application above the adjusted method,
yeah,
laboratory method blanket and detection suggesting that the sample may have been compromised.
but
Yeah,
maybe.
The reverse or
How
the
we-
other part of the pendulum is, if you have that, don't say anything. Don't report that. They are being conservatively
Until you do the
transparent.
second test, maybe, because
Well,
this was a
they're
month
doing a
ago.
second test,
But
I'm sure that
if they
will.
didn't release it, they would have heard about it too. Oh, you hid this from us, and this could have been a real result.
So I think Brian has said
Yeah,
that
we've kind of.
they're gonna be
He's
transparent.
offered fully to, whatever that test said, that's what they're gonna say.
Yep.
That's fine.
It's what they have to do, they just have to, it's the
Yeah,
right thing
and you
to
just
do.
need to make sure that you're reading the whole chart, which is, you know.
Yeah, I tried to temper my response to it to the media, because Ryan called me about it, and, you know, or texted me rather. And I told him that about the blank, and I said, read that and see. And I also said, you know, if we were seeing this, and it was consistent, and it was above that threshold, then I'd be saying right away, turn around, we'll look at that NPDES permit, should we demand that they treat to zero and so on before we release it in the environment? But we're not seeing that.
Well, how did it get in the water a year ago? Same thing, February and March last
The
year.
blank wasn't contaminated at that point, so that was.
That was real dioxane
Right.
in the water.
But I mean, that could have been,
So, I mean,
that could have been
But
somebody,
it's like, you know, when you like, I'm gonna use it as like a food scale example, you know when you zero out a food scale before you put something on? This one, it's like they didn't zero out the scale the right way before they measured it, and so it was like, in theory, the whole test kind of was fucked before they started.
the other ones were verified, validated properly, if I
But then,
understand
can you
it.
imagine
And still, it's
someone
such a
reporting
small
on
amount, I mean, it could have been a
Yeah, but-
detergent bottle in the
well,
Honey Creek or something, you know?
But I don't want any dioxane in my
Well, no,
water,
me neither,
whether it's from
but-
detergent or.
And that's like.
Yeah,
Can we move on from this? I have one more thing to say about this. Even if that reading was accurate, it's what you would expect based on the amount of dioxane that's at the mouth of Honey Creek.
Exactly.
It's
Or
like
if you
1
simply
point
look at
something.
the outfall.
It'd be about, because what Honey Creek contributes to the Huron River is about 2 or 3%, as I understand.
Well, if you look at the outflow, it's 500 gallons a minute at about roughly 5 parts per billion. And that's equivalent to 1 cubic foot per second approximately. The river runs on the average 400 cubic feet per second. And in really dry weather, it gets down under 100 cubic feet per second. So if you just go through and do the dilution, the number that they had is roughly 1/100th of what comes out of the outfall. Well, okay, so it's a little more, and you're assuming that there is really good mixing between
Right.
Honey Creek and.
Plus you got Barton Pond, the volume of Barton Pond to deal with too.
Well, because it's going, if it flows straight through, you don't get much dilution.
All right, now the other thing that's on the agenda here is the update on the CJ. Of course, we can't talk about it because there's no update.
Any information would be appreciated.
I mean, all I can say is we had a closed session on it, we went over dozens and 40-some points of
Do you have a final draft now?
We have a disputed final draft, I'll
Okay.
say that. Is that accurate, Dan, maybe?
Yeah, I mean,
You know, and there's so many parties that have to look at it.
Okay.
But we can't, you know.
But on the timing, as I understand it, very limitedly, because I just read this morning, there was a meeting with the judge, right?
Yes.
On March
there-
2nd?
Yes.
And he required government to provide substantive responses by,
This February 3rd was the meeting, and they had to be back the last week of the month.
and
24th.
Gelman provided those, did they?
In a manner, yes.
In the minute, right. And then on March 9th, you go back to court
At noon.
at noon?
Monday, yes.
and
It's
the-
supposed to
and
be a
everyone will
working session.
convene and see how meaningful the responses were.
Yes.
Will that be a public hearing?
No.
No, but Jeff went to the last.
Well, I went to the scheduling hearing, scheduling conference or hearing, and it was interesting, you know, and I'm gonna go to this one. And it'll be probably more interesting because we have documents to work with. But we can't speak to the substance of it in these meetings. We're talking about the judge is there to discuss progress, not content.
Can you take pictures?
No, none of that stuff. He can't be, the judge can't see the substance of the negotiations because he can't taint himself in case it goes to trial. And so he's interested in scheduling and he's interested in mediating the parties in the discussion.
Well,
And there's plenty to talk about.
Yeah, we remain as committed as ever to addressing this, and it's very frustrating, but we have to follow a process that we all agreed to in terms of having this hearing, and then all the parties will get together again, and we'll try to make a decision together.
can the judge determine that there's been no progress being made, and therefore you guys are going to court? So he's going to terminate the negotiations.
I think, I don't know. I don't know.
He could.
It's been 3 years.
I think any party could ask for that, and I think the judge could probably ask for it, but I don't know what's gonna happen.
And having, going to court opens up the whole appeal process
Absolutely.
forever.
Absolutely.
So.
And a
I'm
very
not
lengthy
speaking
discovery.
on what I know, but just as a practical person who's been in court before, I would not recommend going in that direction.
I would agree with you. I just wondered whether the judge had the authority to stop these negotiations because they're bearing no fruit.
I believe he does, but I would say the positive takeaway on this is that this scheduling hearing, and the judge made it clear that, in my opinion, that he is well in charge of this, and he wants to see the parties come to an agreement.
So with Howard Lazarus stepping down or leaving, is that going to change the dynamics at all?
Nope. Howard wrote an his excellent analysis of what came back, I thought.
He's experienced.
Quickly, yeah, very much so. I'm really going to miss his editorial overview.
a lot of
Yeah,
stuff.
I know.
Chemist.
Yeah. So, yeah, he wrote a good summary, and we got a couple other good summaries, and we had a nice meeting last night, and, yeah, we're working, we're working. I'm looking forward to it.
Thanks for plugging away.
So this meeting, card members can't go to this meeting.
No, this is for intervening parties, people who are privy to the Scio, so.
I was told that the public might be able to be there.
Yeah, that was mistaken.
Are you sure?
What's going on is that the judge has also said that if we do, all the parties come to an agreement, that he wants to have a public hearing in his court before he says, not only do all the parties agree, but he wants to hear if the public agrees also. And so he didn't set a date, but he suggested that he would be amenable to a public hearing outside of any of the public hearings that we would have in his court.
So city council has said that they will make public the consent judgment agreement before they vote to accept it or deny it.
My belief, we have to get permission from
Yes.
the judge, but
Well, that's
that
been an
is,
ongoing.
I know, that is
thing.
how we're interpreting it, that
That's
he
what
wants it public.
That's what we've been told, but we've also been told that it's only if our attorneys can recommend the draft CJ as it stands.
Interesting.
That's what we've always said.
Okay.
So, yeah, if we're not going forward with the CJ, then
You can't disclose it.
we can.
So there's no need for public scrutiny, because it's not going to be before us.
That makes sense, actually.
Well, thanks for coming tonight and giving us an update.
Is there any last-minute questions from the audience? Diane?
More hypothetical questions. We've had a couple of breakthrough dioxane into the drinking water. Everybody kind of, there's another dead bullet we ducked. And everybody says, don't worry, we're under control. What happens? What is the contingency plan? If you get the checks 2 or 3 times, 4 times, and everybody says, Ann Arbor drinking water is contaminated, what is the backup plan? I'm waiting.
I think they would look at installation of filters. I think that was through city council that has already moved forward. I want to remind me on the specifics to filter it out.
Yeah, we got a couple things going. We have that, and they're changing some of the ways we process the carbon because of the other contaminants, including dioxin, and they're also, we are speccing and installing a UV for the cryptosporidium mandates from the state.
They're updating the treatment plan.
Yeah, they're updating the treatment plan, and we're creating a line. I'm told that they're designing the line changes in such a way that it will allow them to implement in the future the properly scaled UV and so on if we have to crack it out ourselves. And the one they're doing now is not, it's only for the cryptosporidium mandates, and so it's not big
They can
enough.
piggyback onto that.
Yeah, there's some.
Well, good,
I
we don't have to worry.
Some issues with it.
Well, I just keep asking that because I say, why would we pay for one that's the 2/3 of the size, and then 10 years later, if we have to pay for one that's the proper size, it's like we paid for 2. Why don't we just pay for the one now? But apparently, it's quite expensive, and it's a long-term play with Brian. And I have every confidence in our water treatment people.
Yes, and I want to clarify, I didn't mean anything
Oh, no.
by bringing this up
But
about
to answer your
them.
question, I think what would happen from a regulatory perspective is that it's quite drinkable yet. You like the
I mean,
state would
that's not
say.
if it's still drinkable.
I know, I'm
That's
just,
what happens when it becomes undrinkable.
well, it's
That's what
it's not if we have a plan. Yeah. Brian says we have a plan. And, you know, I've asked about COVID plans, I've asked about all kinds of our city's emergency plans, and some of them are not public facing. And it's unfortunate, but I have seen them, they let me read them, and I trust that there's a plan and emergency manager in place.
I feel like we're normalizing this though, that like 2 new homeowner wells are contaminated 1 year, and it's okay. And the drinking water might have enough, but it's not gonna hurt you, it's okay.
Actually do good on your hair.
I'm not worried about me, I'm worried about my grandkids and.
It would be nice if it stopped, got restricted, got cleaned up.
Right.
properly.
Yeah, properly.
Which is what we've all been asking for 3 years. And if
Like
these guys,
35, 38.
if these guys can't do it, then bring in the federal government, they can do it.
Yeah, and I pointed out that with if there was 0.05 parts per billion in the river, that wouldn't have happened. That wouldn't have been detected if they had been using the discharge amounts that we got agreement on back in 95, 96. And even if they've been using the 5 parts per billion discharge limit that the administrative law judge had ordered after they contested the case. But instead, Engler's DEQ director at the time changed that without any justification to a limit that was too high, and we've been living with the results of that ever since. And the easy solution for the DEQ would be to have the discharge limits tightened back up to what we've been asking for is 3 or 3.5 parts per billion. Then you wouldn't have to worry about detecting
And
it.
know it was from detergent or shampoo and not from, because they wouldn't be discharging it on any, unless it was a shallower channel.
And that NPDES permit is up for renewal right now, and that's what Dan said, it's already been drafted, but,
It's internal review.
but, you know, people can weigh in on that.
There'll be a comment period.
A public comment.
Public comment period. In fact, Jessica will be emailing to key members of CARD that, hey, it's past, it's at this, past them.
But we don't know the timeframe of that, but it probably will be within weeks.
You know, I asked for that and they just, we don't wanna.
So that's why I say pay attention and get ready to make your comments.
Yeah. And they're gonna have a public meeting. They've already confirmed that.
Yeah,
Has
that's it.
Donald's been involved in this in any way?
I don't think
Yes,
so.
Donald was it?
I don't know. As in what
Well,
way?
she's a state rep and she lives in Hoboken, so she represents part of the Plume area.
I
know she wants to clean up.
And she mentioned in something, a press release that I saw today, it started out with clean water.
I don't know if she'd be into the NPDES details.
Right, I don't know.
Yeah, I just meant in terms of being a resource that would help.
Get the word out.
To a solution.
Right. She could publish something to her constituents that this is coming up.
That's why she invited me to stay to the state.
Yes, she's
Yes.
100% on
The
board,
water.
and forgive me, I drive by, so a little distracted, but there's nothing she wouldn't do to,
Mhm.
you know,
Okay, that's what I thought, I just.
entirely on board with this, and I'm gonna talk to our staff tomorrow, so if there's any messages that you want me to pass along, I'm happy to deliver them.
We just need all of the local support we can get.
Yeah.
All right, I think that's everything.
Right, thank you all for staying a little bit late. Thank you.
Thanks for coming.
Next month, get ready. Get ready for the meetings.
Okay.
Yeah.